thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of Music with a Twist. Now, today we will be interviewing production tour manager Harvey Leslie. Now, upon interviewing Harvey, I found out that he has worked with major companies like Warner Brothers and Disney. He has shot or assisted with the engineering for shows that we know very much about, like Harry Potter and Star Wars as well. Now, he's a little bit of a genius. I've noticed that people that have that engineering background, apart from musicians, they are genius in their own way, as to say. Now, please stay tuned, and I do hope that you enjoy it. Hello, everyone, and I'd like to welcome you to yet another episode of Music with a Twist. Now, today we will be interviewing production and tour manager Harvey Leslie. And Harvey, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yes. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Harvey?
Well, my background in the field developed probably in my teenage years when I was working as a sound engineer and developing that skill. I was working in a local studio in Cambridgeshire in the UK. There's a family place called Blue Barn Studios, still there. It's still owned by the same people, my friend's parents, and it was they'd moved up from London and bought this amazing place in the middle of the countryside, and it was and they built this huge studio in an old farm barn, and I went up there and I was just like, I didn't know what it was. We went there for a birthday party and I was just blown away. I think I was about 16, and I remember the next day, the guy that built it, he said to me, I was asking him, like, how would I get a job in a studio like this? What would I need to know and what would I need to do? And he said, go and learn Logic, come back in 6 months. So I went and learned Logic, and I came back and ended up, they needed an engineer there, and I did some terrible recordings for some bands for no money. I mean, we were very young and working hard, but I mean, I'd love to find those recordings and hear how inexperienced we were. But that energy developed, and I moved to London when I finished studies in Cambridge, and we were in East London, and it was just a really vibrant hub of art and music, probably about 2006. So I kind of realized that live sound instead of studio sound was a viable and interesting future. And I'm really thankful that I chose to do that, because as we all know, the music industry flipped upside down. The money that was available to fund studio sessions basically evaporated exactly those years. And it was very, very hard for anybody to be getting on the ladder in a studio and earning money. So, but simultaneously, the live scene, especially in London, was exploding. So to go down the path of live sound was an exciting and I guess in hindsight, the right decision. If we all look back on what's happening now. But I think aside from the practicalities of getting work in the field, specifically live as opposed to studio, I really kind of latched on to the immediacy of it. I think the way that it's all in a moment. You've got a sink or swim, the show must go on, all these phrases, the buzzwords that we all are aware of, I think drew me to the field because it's exciting, and in those years when you're very young and inexperienced, it's kind of terrifying because, oh God, it's feeding back and everybody's staring at you and oh Jesus, and people are shouting at you and you're young, and some old guy who used to tour with AC/DC hates you already the minute you walk in the door. So, but there's and I think about it a lot to this day, how much I really value and love the immediacy of live event work, whether that be in like a tiny club with a terrible sound system, but with an amazing band, or in an arena or a stadium where you've got all the money and equipment in the world, and you could really just execute an incredibly powerful and creative project, sonically and visually. And I guess that's what ended up leading me into the production management side of things, because bands, you know, want to take a sound guy on the road, but then they also need a driver. So it's like, hey, can you
Mm-hmm.
drive? And then someone in an office is also as young as all the rest of us in our 20s is booking hotels who are completely in the wrong place. And I said, well, look, I'll do all that as well. Stop booking me the wrong hotel. So then you're a tour manager as well. Um, you're doing it all for you know for some money. I mean, I think it was probably 50% of show fees went to the five guys in the band collectively, and the other 50 to me. Very little, it's like 100 each for me to do three jobs and 100 for the five of them to split. It wasn't about the money, um, but we really, really learned a lot. I think everybody. I mean, those years were so formative. I don't think I would have got to where I was at by the time I was sort of 28, and we were doing shows at Glastonbury on the Pyramid Stage, or we were working in arenas. Probably wouldn't have managed to do that if it hadn't been for those, you know, boots on the ground, go and do it for no money and blood, sweat, and tears kind of thing.
Mm.
And that's kind of where, more or less the story of where I'm kind of at now, give or take with some elaboration, but that's kind of the progression.
Okay, great. So, what would you say have been your best shows or production or tours as of date now?
I mean, I could pick a handful of shows that I remembered from those years. Um, they all kind of blur into each other. I loved There was a band that I was working with, kind of new wave, talking headsy kind of a vibe band called Fiction. Um, and we were doing support slots for Klaxons and Metronomy, and it's kind of like late 2000, sort of 8 until 2011 era, British indie Franz Ferdinand kind of era of bands. That was a great experience, and as I've already explained, further on, probably more production management wise, the most formative experience was working with Burt Bacharach, who I was fortunate enough to share, I think, 6 tours over 9 years with. Whenever they came to Europe, I would be a part of a three crew touring party, uh, bare bones, and how many in the band? I should remember.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, about 10, 12 people. It varied because we had additional musicians, and sometimes you'd have a 50-piece orchestra playing. The thing about that was to be, albeit I had some experience by the time that I met that group, but it was it was the next level. It was the US level of artistry. The LA production, the big names. Bert was in his probably early 80s when I met him. Well, I say met him when I met the production, and they took me on the road with them. Um, and to see how incredibly tight, how family oriented they were as a band. They'd all played with him for 30 years, more or less. Uh, he was an incredibly um, tight professional leader. I mean, he was the boss. There was no other boss. We talk about the talent. It's like whose name's on the ticket whenever somebody gets a little arrogant on the crew. It's like, well, is it your name that on the building on the ticket. No, it's not. I mean, it's the artist name. You take that with a pinch of salt. But I think I've been very fortunate, especially with Bert and some others, that anybody who's had a career in the entertainment industry for, I mean, what, 60 plus years, 70 years, like he had. I mean, it's unimaginable to my, at the time, mid 20, 25, 26 year old brain to understand what 60 years at the top of the music and entertainment industry is, all the hits, and seeing how incredibly you live it. They lived it. They breathed it. And everyone was incredibly nice to me, to each other, and open. And I think it stood me in good stead because I didn't grow up professionally around any pretense and arrogance. In that sense, I feel maybe quite fortunate that I had that education from those people who were incredibly well grounded. After, it's like, what have you got to prove anymore? You've got 40 number ones, and you've been, the brass section used to, the woodwinds and the brass players used to play for Sinatra in Vegas, and everybody had done everything. It's like, no, so there was nothing to show, and it was really humbling to me to be brought into that group, and I learned so much. It's a gift that I personally will never forget. And then professionally as well, it was both. It was always work, and again, another lesson that it taught me, and I've definitely heard repeated by people, is they're the boss. Their name's on the ticket. You can be friendly, but they're not your friend on that day. Don't mix things up. Don't get confused. Do your job. And I've seen people fall on the wrong side of that, and who will remain nameless, but we know what we're talking about. It's like, you could be friendly with the talent, but they're not your friend. Don't get confused. And nobody is irreplaceable. Nobody is irreplaceable. If Bert needed to fire an entire orchestra of musicians because they just couldn't get it right, he never would. He'd never push a button, and nobody would present him with, not the right group of people to work with. But yeah, no, like, never forget that nobody's irreplaceable. So you always have to play your part, keep straight, keep things in mind, and keep focused on the end goal, which is, making it happen. It has to happen, and it will, and it does, and that is your job, making it happen.
Wow.
It's being the show.
Yeah. Yeah, now I know that we all can relate to that now, when it comes to artistry and artist management as well, and seeing where it ties in with the difference, with what you explained with production and tour management as well. Now I know to date, Harry Potter has been one of your biggest productions, or you might have had other productions bigger than that before. But with that, can you let us know with the logistics, the challenges that might have arose with that, and what were some highlights as well with taking on an event, of that magnitude?
I think at the time, we go a few years back. So yes, since then, there have been other things that we've been working on, obviously. I like to um, I like to recall the experience of doing those shows, because at the time, it was my first endeavor into like, as a production manager, dealing with arena shows and sequential dates. It was, when it was confirmed with the promoter. I worked with the promoter as a technical manager, production manager throughout the year, and we were doing mostly concert hall, sort of symphony hall type shows. to K 2,500, 2,500 cap symphony hall size theaters. So, as I'm sure everybody would know, when you move up from a venue which has some lights and it has some speakers and it has more or less the infrastructure for you to augment for the show that you want to produce, when you move into the arena world, it's a cold slap in the face when you have to very quickly understand that you get a stage, you get a point to which power is provided for you. Remember, that might not be where you want it. Don't you have to tell them where you're like, I need 300 feet of to the back of my stage, please. Otherwise the electricians will be standing there in the morning going, you didn't order 300 feet of cables, so sorry, bye. No power, no show. It's a slap in the face, but it was a fantastic learning curve. I had some good support from people who were more experienced than me, and namely someone who I've worked with many times was Martin Barraclough. He was working with a crewing company at the time, D&G, and we'd worked together. I'd worked for his shows, I'd used them for my shows, and he was very helpful, well, more than helpful in giving me the inside tips, because it was a huge learning curve, but it was a fantastic experience. And again, one of these formative things that put me to move forward in life professionally in a good place. The Harry Potter was interesting because, as I understood it, it was a US production. Well, it was a US production company called Cine Concerts, who had partnered with Warner Brothers at the time to. I mean, I don't know exactly how it worked, but they basically had the rights to the content of the Harry Potter movies, which essentially was the video content with all the music stripped out and only sound effects and speech, which they then had on like stems, and they would send a sound engineer who ran that audio content and a video technician. So for all intents and purposes, those two people and the movie were the client. They were like the artist who was incoming. We provided everything else. The orchestra was booked by our promoter, and all the production, which was specified by myself and through our suppliers, was for, like as if we're to meet in advance a rider for those two people and the movie. So I think the challenge doing it there, 3 days on, 1 day off, sort of, or 4 and 1 day off on a type arena tours. It's standard to do that if you're a rock and roll band or a pop artist. Everybody knows the arenas in the UK, and it's you call someone up and say, hey, we're doing this, and it's like a load of K2 and K1 acoustic speakers, and oh, you want a big screen, and like everybody knows, right? That was another very helpful thing, picking the right suppliers. Big lesson: pick the right suppliers. You're going to go and do a show in a stadium, find out who does all the tech for those shows, because there's always going to be probably only 2 companies that are big enough to handle working in those big venues, and they will work there all the time. And you call them and say, hey, I'm doing this, and your client manager will just say, cool, you're going to need this. You don't need to figure it out. Almost, and this is the thing about production managing. You have to delegate. You have to put that hat on of going, this is someone else's expertise and not responsibility. It's always your responsibility, but remember that to pick someone better than you at something specific is gold. Never, don't have the arrogance to think, oh well, I'm the best sound guy or like lighting guy. Like, there's the hierarchy is you're lower, they're better. Like when it comes to that, but they're specifically focused on what their thing is, their area. Sound, lights, video, whatever. Bringing the production together for Potter was interesting because the Cine Concerts, I understand, in the States would only use local production, say in like Atlanta, and then they'd go. Those two technicians would the next week be in LA, or the week after be in Chicago or whatever. The distances were too large to tour all that production from arenas. It wasn't necessary because it's actually stuff that you can quite easily get locally. We were doing a production which had to be trucked, and it's in at 7 a.m., out at 2 a.m. Bus, same again the next day, same again the next day. Doesn't sound like a huge challenge, but when you understand there's 88 orchestra players on stage, there's a screen that's 62-foot projection screen that has to be absolutely top notch. People are paying to see a movie, essentially. It's a huge cinema. It's got to look great. The projection balance, the color. I mean, it had to be projection at the time. You couldn't use video LED panels because it's a cinema thing. It's like it's something to do with Warner Brothers. Like the agreement was contractually, it had to be as agreed per rider. And it's when you're working with someone like Warner Brothers as an entity, you don't mess around. And Potter is a huge brand, so you can't have something that's not on spec, right? It's like you'll get in trouble. So you have to be very, very, very serious. And sight lines for a projector screen, I mean, if your PA's in the way, you can chop 350 seats out in the wings. So your sight lines are an incredibly important thing, because you don't want to call the promoter up and say, sorry, we had a big banana of speakers hanging in the way of the screen, and now you've got 600 people that want their money back. So these things were very important. And to design a show that was simple enough to put in the morning, have an orchestra show up for sound check after lunch at 3, run a full rehearsal, show at 7, and then strip it all out and do it again the next day. That, I understand, hadn't really been done with those types of shows through that company in the States. So that was quite exciting to design. I think we actually started off in symphony halls with La La Land. The first one they had was The Godfather. Then they had La La Land. I think it was just off the back of all those Oscar wins. So we designed that again, like consecutive shows in the theaters. So make sure that the rig goes in and out every day. And I think they used that production that we designed, integrated it into their rider for the rest of their European work. So that was kind of cool. And then we did Potter. And the fun thing about Potter, I understand anecdotally, was at the end, after 4 days, we did a show in Birmingham, and our promoter was angling to do Star Wars, same concept, but didn't have the deal yet. And if I remember rightly, the Disney event people showed up to the Potter show, and luckily we'd hung. It was a very end arena with the screen hung above the orchestra because of sightlines, so it just looked enormous. Like, imagine an IMAX. I mean, it's like so big.
Mm-hmm.
And I think immediately off the back of Disney reps seeing that show, they were just like, yeah, cool, here's the contract for all the Star Wars movies to do the same thing. So yeah, that's kind of why I feel that production was interesting and significant. Sure, you go to a Rammstein show or a pop show, there's more lights, there's more people, you've got 200, 300 crew and blah, great lasers. It's not that. But I think just as a small achievement at the time, it was my first foray into the arena world, and I think it seemed to work, and it continued. I'm not sure where it's at now. I don't know if people are kind of still keen on the concept, but I've been away from it for a while. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's pretty cool. I'm learning a lot as you speak about how things like that are actually developed. It's like so much that goes into it, right? And we know that we don't really appreciate all of that, and thank you so much for sharing all of that with me. Now, from a sound engineering perspective, as it pertains with blending traditional live sound, and we have a lot of immersive tech to like VR headsets and spatial audio pods for like hybrid experiences. I know you may have a little bit of an experience on it, but how do you feel about it? And have you ever used any of it before? And what challenges or highlights do you have with or have with using those kind of equipment?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, I think it's not my wheelhouse, experience wise, but it's something that has I've paid attention to the development of it. Um, I've always loved surround sound. I think I saw Roger Waters play at Glastonbury in 2000 and whatever the hell it was, and it was the Pink Floyd quadraphonic system, the famous rig, and I barely knew what the tracks, and suddenly there's a helicopter. I swear to God, there was a helicopter above me. I'm looking up, standing in a field of 90,000 people, and I honestly thought a helicopter was coming down, and
Wow.
realized it was the music. But so I do love the effect. Personally, I kind of find spatial audio, when it comes to, say, like Apple streaming, or the things that were being offered, slightly gimmicky. I feel that it's someone's taken some stems of pop songs and just done this, and I don't know. I don't really need a like the vocal to sound like it's spinning around my head endlessly, and then a guitar solo that like goes up and down. I mean, it's kind of like the old days when you hear the old Queen vinyls when they were playing with stereo effects, and Brian May's guitar got a guitar panned all the way left, and then another one all the way right, and it's got this like just maximum separation in a kind of strange way. They were good at it, but it's people playing with the idea. So I find that tiresome on recordings. Live, I think we're not there yet, for, in my opinion, a simple reason is to do with the content. The technology's there. I mean, the technology's been there as long as someone's been able to send matrix outputs from a mixer. Um, I think the problem is someone who writes the song desiring to create content that actually works for it. So, like the Pink Floyd helicopter thing, like that worked. Someone like in the band went, "Let's do this," and made it part of that track. Um, that's the issue for me, because I don't need someone to just rework a song that I like and make it spin. It's not interesting. So if the content is created in a spatial way, and I have some ideas where you could have, imagine even like an art gallery spatial, like if you had a musician standing here, and like a bass player here, and a drummer here, and a saxophone there, and you walked through those people who are just acoustically making noises, things would sound like spatial. So if you could recreate that effect without the musician, but with speakers, that could be interesting. But that's it's kind of like installation sound art then. Um, in terms of bands, I don't know. Go look at videos of what people think about panning. The argument is to just make the whole thing mono. What's the point in 50,000 people standing in front of the left PA hang and 50,000 in front of the right PA hang, and you've panned one guitar that way and one guitar that way, and nobody hears that, and they don't hear that, and so there's like a mono argument, right? I've heard some things here in Ibiza, some companies. So L Acoustics did a demo at IMS, the International Music Summit, that I'm involved with production through a company called The Shop, and they run the production for that. And L Acoustics came this year and demoed a new product, which is I don't remember all the specifications and details. Do Google it through L Acoustics website. But I understand it is a processor rack unit, which receives signal from a DJ, I understand, in stereo, and then it creates in real time stems, which can then be thrown multi-channel into their processor for their amps. Um, I guess technology is fast enough that with next to no latency, you can take a stem, take a left and a right of a full track and split it into stems and throw it out. Maybe that wouldn't work. Well, you wouldn't need to with a band because you'd have the separate instruments. But with a DJ, then you could throw things around the room in 3D and spatial. Again, who decides where the synth goes and the bass line goes, and if there's a vocal part, like, is it an engineer? Does the artist have an involvement in that pre-production? I don't know. So I'm kind of on the fence with it. I think if someone creates content for it, great. But it's also really going to be if you're an artist, why are you going to mix your next hit specifically? I mean, you have to do one version stereo and one version with the spatial, possible. But which clubs have it? I mean, I'm here in Ibiza. No, I mean, everything's mono. No clubs have spatial. You could, but no, like, people show up and it's not a normal thing. So why does the artist go to the extra lengths to create something to be experienced in that way, which they cannot reproduce in most places they're going to perform in? The way around it would be to do something like, if you're going to do a show at the Sphere in Vegas, you would design something as an incoming artist to utilize the spatial effect that you can achieve. But what happens when you go to somewhere else and you don't have it? It's like a one-off, So I'm not sure. Sort of chicken and egg, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, if
Yeah.
every club and venue had spatial audio, people would write and utilize it. But the venues won't invest in the technology because it's still expensive and it's not an exact science and there's various options. So who's going to go spending extra money on it when nobody's going to utilize it? So I don't know. I think it's a great idea, but it's for me, it feels more like a kind of one-off thing.
Okay, that was great. I mean, thank you for letting me know, how you feel about it. Now, I know at the beginning you did mention about Logic being one of the beginning tools that you used when you first started out in the production/tour management field. Now, I wanted to know specifically, apart from Logic, what tools or systems do you use to stay organized and ensure that everything runs smoothly during a live run or a tour stop?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the scale. I think for me, the most important thing is that someone's whatever paperwork and documentation you create, even if it's going to go to a venue, uh, arguably you can fire a 500 megabyte zip file of endless documents to a venue when you're advancing, and you should always send every supplier's T's and C's and insurance, the nitty gritty, send it all. What's useful on a tour or a show is a different question or a different conversation, in my opinion. I don't know if my opinion is correct, or don't necessarily know what the best thing is. I do think, as a rule, the most useful software or documents are ones that people actually read. So, for example, in the old when I was working with that band Fiction, I was told about a bit of software called Master Tour. I think it had only been out a few years. It was US based, so I signed up. None of the venues that we used in the UK were listed there because of the US software. And I thought, oh, great, cool. You can like add the capacity and how many merch stands there are. And then you realized, like, it's endless. It was also kind of pre-smartphone era, so you were still sort of emailing links for band members to look at the day sheets on. I mean, for me, on that level, we were kind of too small, and it was still a bit early. Now that everybody's got a smartphone and the software is still running, I mean, it's great. It's a fantastic tool. I think everybody should use it, know how to use it. It's not complicated. If you can use Facebook or anything else, you can use Master Tour. It's you add people and you throw the info in. The great thing is obviously you can keep it endlessly updated. That's the power. It's also the interface on a phone is simple enough that when some hungover band member stumbles out of the tour bus, they know where they're supposed to be because it's easy. But again, if it depends on the show. So Master Tour's not really relevant if I'm just doing things here in Ibiza where it's maybe a week of production for a wedding or a week of production for a brand or a week of, 2 days of a private party. Uh, I'm not using Master Tour. We're still probably in the uh, word processing and Excel spreadsheet sort of territory because I mean, just make it big font, simple. Don't send someone 65 pages of stuff with red boxes on Microsoft Paint to like PDFs. I mean, I'm just not going to read it. People are just too busy, and keep it. It's like a CV. I think it's like you're going to send someone a CV. Nobody's going to read a 9-page CV for anything ever. I really don't think. I mean, honestly. So keep it brief, big font. So if you print it out, it's readable, and you can stick it on someone's desk or something, or their flight case where they work, and say, "Here, this update," or "This is tomorrow." Um, but there's many things. I think anything I think cloud-based is useful. So if your laptop's stolen, you know, or you lose something, or I've been at borders where the laptop's on the tour bus, and I've only got my phone or something, and you need to find someone's interrogating you at a customs point, and where is your hotel tomorrow? And you're like, oh shit, it's in an email on my laptop. So having stuff on like iCloud or Dropbox or whatever Google Drive, just having folders of things that are documents and info, however you present them, is useful when you're on the road for yourself as a production manager, managerial person, or just anybody. You can share it. Clients can throw stuff in it. You can kind of basic level keep it updated, but I would say keep it cloud based, keep it simple, so people actually bother to read it. And everything else is, I mean, there's so many options. Invoicing software is good. Zoho Invoice I use, it's free. The Zoho platform is quite interesting if you want to pay for it and dig into it. But being able to pay me, reminder, pay me, reminder, pay me, as if you've got an assistant. It's not like you're WhatsApping someone saying, "Oh, have you paid that invoice yet?" So that's really cool because everything. It's all fun and games doing what we do, but getting paid is important. So a good bit of invoicing software is the other thing I would recommend. So yeah, in terms of software and documents, that's kind of my opinion.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. Now, in closing, for those who may be listening, what would be some advice that you give to persons that would like to, start out into production, or if they've been in the game for some time, like just randomly, any advice that you'd like to give them, in closing?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm no oracle. I've done a few things. Always try to feel humble about it, but I guess now I can kind of look back and feel quite proud about some of the experiences that I've shared with some amazing people that I've worked with. And I have to give thanks to everybody that's contributed over the years to just everything that we've done, because it's so important to just have happy people doing tours and shows. I'll take a quick side note. Mental health is very important in our industry. People should check all the websites about this. Stay good up here, because that's very important. And look out for each other if you're on the road. It's very, very, very important. We work hard. We work long hours away from home, away from partners and family. It's tough on the mind, and it's easy to just be on the road for too long. So I will use this as a brief moment to say, look after your mind and look after each other. Um, if someone's starting out in the industry, I would say, like, so whatever that you're interested in. Someone might say, someone's 20 years old and likes doing sound, or likes interested in video, or whatever. Just go find a crewing company in your city and just ask, can I, I want a crew, want to be, do some crew work. Or endlessly need people are endlessly needed. Um, uh, Shows come in, but trucks need unloaded, boxes need pushed. You don't need to be super technical. Helps if you've got a technical mind. But at the end of the day, if you want to be part of the industry, just crew are always needed. Local crew are always needed and always in short supply. And as we do more and more big concerts, it's like, what do you do when you've got like Rammstein? We were in Amsterdam a couple of weeks ago. A couple of weeks ago, this time last year, and all of my crew for our show were sort of struggling after doing a Rammstein load out. They had 380 crew or something that tore out that show, and I had 40 or something, or 50. And then there's something else being built, and they're all going to go on and do pops. It's like, and people are endlessly needed. So my advice is, go find out who your crewing companies are in your city. Crewing event crew, whatever, Los Angeles, or event crew in Boston. Just say, hey, I'm up for it. I'm young. I'm ready to show up on time, and I'm strong, and you'll get paid. People shouldn't take advantage. Make sure the rates are fair, but it's it's a tough game. Crew are always needed. People don't mess around with that sort of stuff. So just get stuck in. And honestly, if you show up and are willing to work, those are the two most important things and requirements that I have of anybody. Like, whether you're 20 years experienced sound engineer, or whether you're just unloading the truck, or whether you're driving the truck, or like whoever you are, number one important thing, you show up. Like, at all. Like, even late, but just somebody that comes. And the second, when you are there, you are willing to do something. And it sounds really basic, but I've had people that don't come at all and say nothing. That's a big problem. If you need 50 people to build a show and you get 10, you have a problem. Like, the production has a problem. So number one. Number two, I've had people that you get your 40 guys, or however many, but like 30 of them are not interested in working at all. They're either tired or they're just not interested, and they will stand there and smoke cigarettes at every opportunity and have zero interest in doing any work. So those are the two most important things. After those two things, we can get into all the other stuff. But if you're willing to do those two things like regularly, you will progress, you will learn, and people will call you back, because those things are very important. Willingness and presence.
Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing that with us, Harvey. I know that I've learned quite a bit with my experience of being around sound engineers and tour managers. It was really a treat to hear your perspective on everything. And thank you so much for being with us today.
You're very welcome. It's been nice to talk to you.
Yes.
And I wish you lots of luck with the podcast, and I look forward to listening to some more people that you interview. So,
thank you so much.
thank you very much. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye bye.
You take care now. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to my episode with Harvey Leslie. I do hope that you did learn a lot about the engineering field, you know, if this is your first time or if you are an advanced, you know, engineer, or if you are looking to branch out, you know, into touring and you want to try something new, you know, do take the leap. Don't be afraid to do it. You can check out their socials, you know, to follow up more what he does. He's in Spain right now, so you can look forward to more episodes next week as we will be interviewing some more fun and cool features as well. Thank you. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share.